You deserve better." Mrs. Oladell decided to stay for dinner, wanting to see Titi's behavior for herself. That evening, as they all sat at the table, Titi's true nature emerged. She snapped at a bike over a minor mistake, her voice harsh and unforgiving. Segun, as usual, didn't notice, but Mrs. Oladell did. She calmly but firmly addressed Titi. "Titi, I see how you treat a bike, and it is unacceptable." Titi was taken aback, her face flushing with anger and embarrassment. Segun looked confused and worried. "What do you mean, Mrs. Oladell?" he asked. "I mean that a bike is being mistreated," Mrs. Oladell said, her voice steady. "And you, Segun, need to open your eyes. Your daughter needs your support." Segun looked at a bike, really looked at her for the first time in a long while. He saw the tiredness in her eyes, the sadness in her face. "A bike, is this true?" he asked softly. A bike nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "Yes, Papa, it's true." Segun felt a wave of guilt and regret. He turned to Titi, his expression hardening. "We need to talk," he said, his voice firm. A bike had grown into a beautiful young woman. Her smile was warm, her eyes sparkled with joy, and her kindness touched everyone she met. Her family was proud of her, especially her mother Titi and her father Segun. They knew she was special and hoped she would find a good man to marry. One sunny morning, a bike was helping her stepmother in the kitchen when they heard a knock on the door. Titi wiped her hands on her apron and went to see who it was. At the door stood a tall man with a bright smile. "Good morning, Ma," he said, bowing slightly. "My name is Femi. I have come to ask for your daughter's hand in marriage." Titi was surprised but pleased. "Come in, Femi," she said, leading him to the living room. She called Segun to join them. A bike, curious about the visitor, stayed in the kitchen, peeking through the door. She saw Femi talking to her parents. He seemed polite and respectful. After some time, Segun called her into the room. "A bike, this is Femi," Segun said. "He has come to ask for your hand in marriage." A bike blushed and greeted Femi. They talked for a while, and a bike found him charming. He spoke about his job, his family, and his dreams for the future. A bike liked what she heard but wanted some time to think about it. "Thank you, Femi," a bike said politely. "I need some time to consider your proposal." Femi nodded, understanding. "Of course, a bike. Take all the time you need. I will wait for your answer." Over the next few weeks, more suitors came to ask for a bike's hand in marriage. There was AD, a successful businessman with a kind heart. Then there was Kunlel, a doctor who loved helping people. Each suitor had something special, and a bike felt overwhelmed by the choices. One evening, a bike sat with her father in the garden, thinking about her suitors. "Father, how will I know who is the right man for me?" a bike asked, looking worried. Titi smiled and took her hand. "A bike, listen to your heart. The right man will make you feel happy and safe. He will respect you and your dreams. Take your time and choose wisely." A bike nodded, feeling a little better. She decided to spend more time with each suitor to get to know them better. She went on walks with Femi, had long conversations with AD, and visited Kunal at his clinic. As the days passed, a bike found herself thinking about one suitor more than the others. She realized she had strong feelings for Femi. He was kind, caring, and always made her laugh. A bike felt happy and safe when she was with him. One evening, as the sun was setting, Femi came to visit a bike's family. He brought flowers and a shy smile. "A bike, I have come to ask for your answer," Femi said, his voice gentle. A bike looked into his eyes and knew what she wanted. "Femi, I would be honored to be your wife," she said, her heart full of joy. Femi's face lit up with happiness. He hugged their bike and thanked her parents for their blessing. They set a date for the wedding, and the whole village celebrated the news. Abike felt grateful for her parents' guidance and for the love she had found. She knew that her life with Femi would be filled with happiness and adventure, and so Abike's journey continued with love and hope lighting her way. Abike was excited. She was going to meet Femi, a kind and handsome young man who had shown interest in her. Her heart was full of hope. Maybe he would be the one for her, but Abike's stepmother Titi had other plans. Titi was jealous of Abike's beauty and kindness. She wanted all the attention and love for herself. Whenever Femi came to visit Abike, Titi would find a way to spoil their meeting. One evening Femi came to visit Abike. They were talking and laughing in the living room. Titi saw them and her face twisted with anger. She waited for the right moment, then called Femi into the kitchen. "Femi, I need to talk to you," Titi said with a sweet but fake smile. Femi followed her, curious. Titi began to speak in a low, serious voice. "Femi, you seem like a nice young man," she said. "But I have to warn you about Abike. She is not as kind and sweet as she appears. She is very selfish and has a bad temper." Femi was shocked. "Really? Abike seems so gentle and kind." "That's just an act," Titi said, shaking her head sadly. "She has hurt many people with her behavior. I wouldn't want you to be her next victim." Femi left the house, his mind filled with doubts. Abike noticed that he was distant and cold. She wondered what had gone wrong. She thought they were getting along so well. This pattern continued with each Femi who came for Abike. Titi would always find a way to speak to them alone, spreading lies and rumors. She would say Abike was lazy, unkind, or even that she was seeing someone else. The Femis would lose interest and Abike would be left heartbroken. One day Abike could not take it anymore. She was furious and heartbroken. She sat in her room crying. "Why is Titi doing this to me? Why is she so cruel?" she asked herself. Abike decided to confront Titi. She wiped her tears and went to the kitchen where Titi was preparing dinner. "Titi, why are you doing this to me?" Abike asked, her voice trembling with anger and sadness. Titi looked up, pretending to be confused. "Doing what, Abike? Why are you lying to Femi and ruining my chances of finding happiness? What did I do to deserve this?" Abike demanded, her eyes filled with tears. Titi's face hardened. "You don't deserve happiness, Abike. You are not even my real daughter. Why should I care about your feelings?" Abike was stunned. She had always known that Titi didn't like her, but she didn't expect her stepmother to be so openly cruel. "I may not be your real daughter, but I have never done anything to hurt you. Why are you doing this to me?" Titi turned away, not answering. Abike felt a surge of determination. She knew she had to take control of her life. She couldn't let Titi continue to rule. And her chances. Abike sat by the window, staring out at the world she felt so far away from. The birds chirped and the sun shone, but inside, Abike's heart was heavy with Soa 0W. She felt trapped under her stepmother, Titi's cruel watch. Titi's words from their last confrontation still echoed in her mind. "You don't deserve happiness, Abike. You are not even my real daughter." These words hurt more than anything Abike had ever felt. No matter what she did, it seemed she could never make Titi happy. Days turned into weeks, and Ike's sadness deepened. She felt lonely and isolated. Titi controlled every aspect of her life. She wasn't allowed to go out or have friends over. Even when Femi tried to visit, Titi would find ways to keep them apart. One rainy afternoon, Abike sat in her room. tears streaming down her face. She hugged a pillow close, wishing it could comfort her. She felt completely alone. Her friends didn't understand what she was going through, and she was too ashamed to tell them. Adi stood firm. I don't care about Titi's L. I love a bike and I want to marry her. A bike's heart fluttered. She couldn't believe someone was standing up for her against Titi's schemes. Titi, frustrated, tried one last time. Adi, you don't know everything. A bike isn't the right person for you, but Adi shook his head. I know a bike well. She is kind, honest, and caring. Your words won't change my mind. A bike looked at Adi with tears of gratitude in her eyes. Thank you, Adi, she whispered. Adi smiled. Don't worry, a bike. We'll get through this together. A bike and Adi knew they had to be careful. Titi's influence and anger were not to be taken lightly. So they decided to meet in secret, planning every detail of their future without her interference. A bike, we need to be very careful, Adi said, holding her hands across the table. Titi can't know about our plans until it's too late for her to stop us. A bike nodded. I know, Adi. But I'm scared. Titi can be very dangerous when she's angry. We'll get through this, Adi reassured her. I've already spoken to a pastor in a neighboring village. He has agreed to marry us quietly. We just need to pick a date and get everything ready. A bike felt a surge of hope. Thank you, Adi. I don't know what I would do without you. As the days passed, a bike and Adi continued to meet in secret, finalizing their plans. They decided to get married in a month, giving them just enough time to make all the arrangements without raising suspicion. But Titi was sharp. She noticed a bike slipping out often and returning with a glow on her face. Suspicious, she decided to follow a bike one evening. Titi's heart burned with rage as she watched a bike and Adi together, laughing and talking. So this is why she's been acting strange, Titi thought. They think they can outsmart me? I'll show them. Titi stormed back home, her mind racing with ways to stop the wedding. She knew she had to act quickly. The next day, Titi confronted a bike. Where have you been sneaking off to, a bike? She demanded. A bike tried to stay calm. Nowhere special, Titi. Just running errands. Titi spat. I've seen you with Adi. You think you can marry him without my permission? A bike's heart pounded. Titi, please understand. I love Adi, and he loves me. Why can't you be happy for us? Happy. Titi laughed bitterly. I will never let you marry Adi. I have other plans for you. A bike felt a chill run down her spine. What do you mean? You'll see, Titi said with a sinister smile. You think you're so clever, but you can't outsmart me. A bike ran to meet Adi that evening, tears streaming down her face. Adi, Titi knows about us. She's planning something to stop our wedding. Adi held her close. Don't worry, a bike. We'll figure this out. We just have to move faster. They decided to move the wedding up, planning to leave for the neighboring village in just a week. Adi made all the necessary arrangements, ensuring everything was ready. As the day approached, Titi grew more furious. She tried to sabotage their plans, spreading lies about Abike and causing trouble wherever she could. Abike was sitting in her small room, lost in thought, when she heard a loud knock on the door. She opened it to find Titi standing there, her face twisted in anger. We need to talk, Titi said, pushing past Abike and storming into the room. Abike closed the door and turned to face her. What do you want, Titi? Titi glared at her. I want you to leave Adi alone. You will never marry him. Do you hear me? Abike's heart raced. She had been expecting this confrontation, but it still made her nervous. Titi, why can't you let us be happy? Adi and I love each other. Titi laughed bitterly. Love. What do you know about love? You're just a poor girl trying to trap him. That's not true, Abike protested. We care about each other deeply. Listen to me, Abike, Titi said, stepping closer. I will do everything in my power to make sure you never marry Aid. If you don't leave him, I will ruin your life. Abike felt tears welling up in her eyes, but she held them back. You can't stop us, Titi. Adi is determined, and so am I. Titi's eyes narrowed. We'll see about that. With that, she turned and left the room, slamming the door behind her. Abike sank onto her bed, feeling a mixture of fear and determination. She knew Titi would stop at nothing to keep her and Aid apart, but she also knew she couldn't give up on the love they shared. Meanwhile, Eddie was meeting with his best friend Olamide. They were sitting in a small cafe discussing the latest developments. Adi, are you sure about this? Segun asked. Titi is not someone to be taken lightly. Ed nodded firmly. I'm sure, Segun. I love Abike and I want to marry her. I need your help. Olamide sighed. All right, what do you need me to do? I want you to speak to Abike's family on my behalf, Ed explained. Ask for her hand in marriage. I know it's unconventional, but I believe it will show them how serious I am. Olamide looked thoughtful. It's a bold move, Adid. But if it will help you and Abike, I'll do it. The next day, Olamide went to see Abike's family. Her father, Segon, was a stern man who valued tradition and respect. When Olamide arrived, he was greeted with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. Good afternoon, Mr. Segun, Olamide said respectfully. I am here on behalf of my friend Adi. He wishes to ask for Abike's hand in marriage. Segun raised an eyebrow. And why is Aid not here himself? He wanted to show his respect for your family, Olamide explained. He thought it would be more appropriate for a trusted friend to come first. Segun nodded slowly. Very well. Tell Adi he may come to speak with me himself. When Olamide relayed the message to Aid, he felt a surge of hope. It was a small step, but it was progress. That evening, Aid went to see Mr. Olamide, his heart pounding with nervous anticipation. Good evening, Sir. Adi greeted him. I am here to formally ask for Abike's hand in marriage. Segun looked at Adi carefully. You must understand, Aid, that this is not a decision to be taken lightly. Abike is my daughter and her happiness is my priority. I understand, Sir. Adi replied earnestly. I love Abike and I want to spend my life making her happy. I promise to take care of her and respect her always. Segun considered his words for a long moment before finally nodding. Very well, Adi. You have my permission, but remember you must always honor and cherish her. Adi felt a wave of relief and joy. Thank you, sir. I will not let you down. When Adi told Abike the news, she was overwhelmed with happiness. Despite Titi's threats, their love had prevailed. They embraced, knowing that together they could face any challenge that came their way. Abike and Adi were excited. Their wedding day was approaching fast. They had been planning for months, and now the time was almost here. Friends and family were buzzing with joy and excitement. Abike's father, Mr. Segun Adesanya, was especially happy. The house was filled with activities. The kitchen was always busy with women cooking and chatting. Abike's friends came over every day to help with decorations and other preparations. They talked about the wedding dress, the flowers, the cake, and everything that would make the day perfect. However, not everyone was happy. Titi, Abike's stepmother, had never liked Aid. She thought Abike wasn't good enough for Adid. Titi had her reasons, but they were selfish. She was jealous of Abike's happiness and success. So Titi secretly planned to end the wedding. As the days went by, Titi began to set her plan in motion. She whispered rumors about Aidi, hoping to cause trouble. She tried to make Abike doubt her decision, but Abike was confident in her love for Adi and ignored the whispers. She trusted him completely. On the night before the wedding, Titi made a final attempt. She snuck into the house where the wedding dress was kept. She intended to ruin it, but as she reached for the dress, she heard footsteps. It was Abike's friend coming to check on the preparations one last time. Titi quickly hid and escaped unnoticed. The wedding day, the sun rose on the wedding day, casting a golden glow over everything. The air was filled with excitement and anticipation. Abike's house was even busier than before. Hairdressers and makeup artists worked their magic. Abike looked stunning in her beautiful white dress. Meanwhile, Adi and his friends were also getting ready. They laughed and joked, trying to calm Aid's nerves. He couldn't wait to see Abike and start their life together. As the guests arrived, Titi grew more nervous. Her plan to end the wedding had failed, but she wasn't ready to give up. She had one last trick up her sleeve. Titi planned to disrupt the ceremony itself. The ceremony began beautifully. The hall was decorated with flowers and lights, creating a magical atmosphere. Abike walked down the aisle looking radiant. Adi's eyes filled with tears of joy as he saw her. Just as the vows were about to be exchanged, Titi made her move. She stood up and started shouting, accusing Adi of being unfaithful. The guests gasped, and a hush fell over the room. Abike looked at Adi, and he looked back at her with steady eyes. Adi took Abike's hand and spoke clearly. Abike, I love you. I have always been faithful to you. These accusations are false. Abike believed him. She turned to the guests and said, This is our day and nothing will ruin it. Titi's plan had failed. The guests began to murmur, and it was clear they did not believe her. Embarrassed, Titi left the hall, realizing her mistake. The ceremony continued without further interruptions. Abike and Adi exchanged their vows, promising to love and cherish each other forever. When they were pronounced husband and wife, the hall erupted in cheers and applause. The reception was a joyous celebration. There was music, dancing, and delicious food. Everyone congratulated the happy couple. Abike and Adi were finally married, and nothing could spoil their happiness. As the night came to an end, Abike and Adi thanked their guests and said their goodbyes. They were ready to start their new life together. Despite Titi's attempts to sabotage their day, their love had triumphed. They knew they could face any challenge as long as they were together. And so Abike and Adi began their journey as husband and wife, looking forward to the future with hope and love. At first, Segun couldn't understand what was wrong. He felt restless and uneasy. The once comfortable presence of Titi, his wife, now felt disturbing. He began to see things he hadn't noticed before, like the way Titi spoke to Abike. One evening, Abike visited. She prepared a meal. As they sat together in the living room, Titi made a slight comment about Abike's cooking. This soup is so bland. Can't you ever get it right, Abike? She said with a sneer. Segun's stomach turned. He had heard Titi make similar remarks before, but now they struck him differently. He saw the hurt in Abike's eyes, though she tried to hide it with a smile. Segun's heart ached with guilt. How had he not seen this cruelty before? As the days passed, Segun's discomfort grew. He watched Titi more closely and saw how often she belittled Abike, making her feel small and unworthy. Segun's feelings for Titi, which had once been strong, began to sour. He realized that the charm she had used on him had clouded his judgment, making him blind to her true nature. One afternoon, Segun decided he needed to confront Titi. He found her in the garden, tending to the flowers. "Titi, we need to talk," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Titi looked up, her eyes narrowing. "What is it, Segun?" "You look troubled." Segun took a deep breath. "I've been feeling strange since the wedding. At first I didn't understand it, but now I do. The charm you used on me, it's wearing off." Titi's expression changed to one of concern, but Segun could see a flicker of fear in her eyes. "What are you talking about?" Segun didn't back down. "I see things clearly now. I see how you've been treating a bike. You've been cruel to her, Titi, and I regret ever letting you influence me." Titi's face twisted in anger. "Cruel? I'm only honest. If a bike can't handle the truth, that's her problem." Segun shook his head. "No, Titi, there's a difference between honesty and cruelty. You've been hurting her and I was too blind to see it because of your charm." Titi stepped closer, her voice low and menacing. "You owe everything to me, Segun. Without my help, you wouldn't be where you are today." Segun felt a surge of anger and determination. "I don't owe you my happiness, Titi. And I won't let you hurt a bike anymore." With that, Segun turned and walked away, leaving Titi fuming in the garden. He went straight to a bike who was sitting in the kitchen, looking sad and lost. He took her hand and looked into her eyes. "A bike, I'm so sorry. I see now what Titi has been doing. I'm going to make it right." A bike's eyes filled with tears. "Daddy, I thought you didn't care." Segun shook his head, his heart breaking for her. "I care, a bike. I care so much. The charm she used on me, it made me blind. But not anymore." Together, Segun and the bike decided to distance themselves from Titi. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. They focused on rebuilding their father and daughter relationship, free from Titi's talks. See influence. Segun supported a bike in every way he could, making sure she knew how much he valued and loved her. In time, the wounds began to heal. Segun's feelings for Titi faded completely, replaced by a deep love and respect for a bike. They faced challenges together, but their bond grew stronger with each passing day. The charm's break was a blessing in disguise. It opened Segun's eyes to Titi's true nature and helped him realize what truly mattered, feeling trapped in a web of LT. Titi knew she had to come clean. She found Segun sitting alone by the garden, his face clouded with worry. Taking a deep breath, she approached him hesitantly. "Segun, I need to tell you something," Titi said softly, her voice trembling. Segun looked up, surprised to see Titi looking so anxious. "What is it, Titi?" he asked, concern etched in his voice. Titi took a seat beside him, fidgeting with her hands nervously. I have done something terrible," she began, her eyes welling up with tears. Segun frowned, his heart racing with dread. "What do you mean?" Titi took a deep breath, steeling herself to confess. "I $1 und Adenaki," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "And I used a charm on you." Segun's eyes widened in Ishike. The world seemed to stop around him as her words sank in. The woman he had trusted, the woman he loved. Anger surged through Segun like a raging storm. "You did what?" he demanded, his voice trembling with fury and HRT. Titi bowed her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I was desperate," she sobbed. "I thought Adenaki was standing in the way of my happiness, and I wanted you to love me." Segun shook his head in disbelief, struggling to comprehend the depth of Titi's deception. The pain of betrayal cut deep into his heart. He stood up abruptly, pacing back and forth, trying to make sense of everything. "You used me," Segun finally said, his voice thick with emotion. "All this time I trusted you." Titi reached out to him, her hand trembling. "Segun, please, I'm sorry," she pleaded, her voice choked with remorse. "I never meant for things to turn out this way. I was ended by my own selfish desires." Segun turned away from her, unable to bear the sight of her tears. "You need to leave," he said quietly, his voice hollow with pain. "I need time to think." Titi nodded sadly, knowing she had lost everything. She stood up, her heart heavy with regret, and walked away, leaving Segun alone with his thoughts. Segun sank onto the bench, his mind swirling with anger, sorrow, and confusion. He had been deceived by the woman who claimed she loved him. He vowed to make things right, to undo the damage Titi had caused. As the sun set on the horizon, casting long shadows over the garden, Segun made a decision. He would confront Titi and ensure justice was served. Little did Segun know, this dark chapter would test his resilience and redefine his understanding of love, trust, and forgiveness. In the quiet village where Titi, Segun, and Abike lived, dark clouds gathered ominously, mirroring the somber mood that had settled over their home. Titi had fallen seriously ill, and her health was rapidly declining. Her once vibrant spirit was now overshadowed by a deep, consuming guilt that gnawed at her daily. Segun and Abike did their best to care for her, but Titi's condition seemed to worsen with each passing day. Abike often found Titi staring out the window, her eyes distant and filled with regret. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow over the village, Abike sat beside Titi's bed, holding her frail hand. Titi's breathing was shallow, and she seemed to struggle with every breath. "Titi," Abike said softly, "you need to rest. Please try to sleep." Titi's eyes met Abike's, and a tear rolled down her cheek. "I'm so sorry, Abike," she whispered. "I never meant to hurt you. I was Shay and into your feelings." Abike squeezed Titi's hand gently. "It's in the past, Titi. What's important now is that you focus on getting better." Titi shook her head weakly. "I don't think I have much time left, Abike, but knowing that you and Segun can find happiness again gives me some peace." Segun entered the room, his face etched with worry. He sat on the other side of Titi's bed, taking her other hand in his. "Titi, you have to fight this. We need you here with us." Titi gave him a faint smile. "I've made my peace, Segun. Please promise me you'll take care of each other." Segun nodded, tears welling up in his eyes. "I promise, Titi. We'll do our best." The room was silent except for the sound of Titi's labored breathing. As the night wore on, her strength waned and her breaths grew fainter. Abike and Segun stayed by her side, holding her hands and whispering words of comfort. In the early hours of the morning, Titi took her last breath. A profound silence filled the room, and Segun and Abike were left to grapple with the loss of their beloved friend. They held each other, tears streaming down their faces, mourning the end of Titi's journey. In the days that followed, Segun and Abike tried to come to terms with their grief. They buried Titi in the village cemetery under the shade of a large old tree. The whole village gathered to pay their respects. After the funeral, Segun and Abike found themselves standing at a crossroads. They had lost Titi, but they knew they had to find a way to move forward. Together they decided to honor Titi's memory by rebuilding their lives and focusing on the future. Segun, who had always been skilled with his hands, decided to expand his small woodworking and farming business. Abike, on the other hand, found solace in helping others in the village. She started a small community garden where she and the villagers could grow fresh produce and spend time together. Through their grief, Segun and Abike discovered a renewed sense of purpose. They leaned on each other for support and drew strength from the memories of their time with Titi. Slowly but surely they began to heal. One sunny afternoon, as Segun and Abike worked side by side in the garden, Abike looked up at the sky, feeling a sense of peace. Segun nodded, a small smile on his face. I think so too, Abike. We've come a long way and we have each other to thank for that. As they continued their work, the village thrived around them, a testament to their resilience and the enduring bond they shared. Segun sat alone in his corridor, thinking about everything that had happened. He had finally broken free from Titi's influence, and it felt like a huge weight had been lifted off his shoulders. Now he could focus on what truly mattered, making amends with his daughter, Abike. Segun knew he had made many mistakes. His relationship with Titi had driven a wedge between him and Abike, but now he was determined to make things right. He took a deep breath and decided to visit Abike's home. When Segun arrived at Abike's door, he felt nervous. He knocked softly, and after a few moments, Abike opened the door. She looked surprised to see him. "Hi, Dad," she said quietly. "Hi, Abike," Segun replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "Can we talk? I need to ask for your forgiveness." Abike stepped aside to let him in. They sat down in the living room, the atmosphere tense but hopeful. Abike, Segun began, "I know I've HRT you. I took sides with Titi, your stepmother, and I was wrong. I'm so sorry. I let her come between us, and I regret it deeply." Abike looked at him, her eyes filled with a mix of sadness, dollar, and hope. "Dad, I missed you. It's you RT when you didn't stand by me, I know," Segun said, his voice breaking. "I want to make it up to you. I want to support you and your family. Please give me a chance to be a better father." Abike's eyes softened and she reached out to hold his hand. "Thank you, Dad. That means a lot to me. I want us to be close again." Over the next few weeks, Segun worked hard to rebuild his relationship with Abike. He spent more time with her and her family, helping out whenever he could and offering his support. Slowly but surely, the bond between them grew stronger. One evening, Segun visited Abike's home for dinner. The atmosphere was warm and welcoming. Abike's husband Adid and their children were happy to see him. They all sat around the table, sharing stories and laughter. After dinner, as they sat together in the living room, Segun felt a deep sense of contentment. He looked at Abike and her family, feeling grateful for this second chance. "Thank you for giving me this opportunity," Segun said, his voice filled with emotion. "I promise to always be there for you." Abike smiled and hugged him. "We're happy to have you back, Dad. We're starting a new chapter and we're glad you're part of it." As they sat together, talking and laughing, Segun felt a sense of peace. The past was behind them, and they had a bright future ahead. He knew there would be challenges, but they would face them together with love and support.